Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to another Saturday Night Sci-Fi genre mixing Shadow Chat. Um, Over here, I got my good friend James, DM James. How you doing tonight?
Oh, living the dream.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. And over here, I just knew if I made the thumbnail and did the thing that Owen would be sure to join us. How you doing, Owen? How's your vacation?
Well, so far so good, other than a minor scare with my father this morning, but otherwise pretty good.
Oh,
I don't
I'm
think
sorry.
Omnow should be allowed on this show since he never shows up on mine.
So real quick, I want to address Joe the lawyer, Tenkar, the dungeon delver, and all the other guys that are doing their version of the genre mixing. I think Joe the lawyer started the ball rolling, saying how he does not like it, and like I was telling my friend James here, if you were touched in the wrong place by tech in your fantasy games or fantasy in your tech games, I'm sorry, I didn't do it, but our other friend who couldn't be with us, Mr. Gonzo himself, Avenger Satanis, he's a huge fan. Arduin was a huge proponent of that. David A. Hargrave back in the 70s realized that, it's peanut butter and chocolate, spaghetti and meatballs, lamb and tuna fish. Pick your combo. It's all it's all a matter of taste. And for me personally, I've done this before. We've talked about this before. If done right, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. If done wrong, it's a surefire game or campaign ender. Excuse me, just one second. My dog is mooching for food downstairs, and he knows he only gets to eat once a week, and this isn't that day. So I don't know what the problem is. So let's start it out. James, what do you like about it? What do you hate about it?
Well, I mean, I think the first game I played that would be considered genre mixing would be maybe, I don't know, you told me Gamma World.
I knew you were going to say that, and you're absolutely right. For us mainstream guys back in the day, when all we could get, I know Owen wasn't one of those guys, was the box sets that were at our local hobby game comic book shop. Here you go, everything you need in this box. Gamma World was the first readily available, easy to get game that had it had robots and mutants and psychic powers and people living in a medieval feudalistic world after the bomb, after the apocalypse, or what have you. That was our sort of, for a lot of us, our gateway. So what did you
Yeah.
like about it?
As I remember, the thing I really liked about it was this would be second edition, the box set.
The best version.
And one of my favorite things about it as a GM was trying to find ways to describe technological things that I knew what they were, but in a way that a bunch of, you know, pretty much Stone Age or early, Iron Age people would view a thing, like um
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, and honestly, even though some people hated it, I really kind of liked that chart where you
Yep.
had to roll all the dice to try to figure out if you could blow
Barrows
yourself
and
up or figure out how an item worked.
Barrows and Borderlands did the same thing for their world because it is a post-apocalyptic game but it has magic, it has psionics, but it has that chart, several of them, depending on the complexity of the item. You follow the flow chart, and hopefully you don't land on a skull and crossbones and blow yourself up or disintegrate yourself or, you know, put the electric toothbrush in the wrong orifice.
Yeah, I mean, imagine somebody who's living in like a Bronze Age society finding an RPG round and just starting to hammer on it with a brick or something. It's
I
like that
instantly
would be the
pictured
skull
that.
and crossbones.
I
Wait a
instantly
minute, wait a minute.
pictured
They
that.
do that now.
Yeah,
You guys remember that Bugs Bunny cartoon with Bugs Bunny and the Gremlin during WW2 when they were, the Gremlins were a sort of a thing where people believed that they were sabotaging things, and here you had this Gremlin, whacking away on a hammer on a big freaking bomb, it's just exactly,
I don't think I
when all you've
remember
got
that,
is a
but I
hammer, everything
do
looks like a
remember.
nail.
I remember the one where the guy was sitting in an airplane and it was like a movie, and he looked out the airplane window and there was
Twilight
like,
Zone. That was the Twilight
yeah, I
Zone.
guess, yeah, and there was a thing out there ripping the engine off of the damn airplane or something.
Yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. That was
Yeah,
Well,
was that
Howard Stern. You
Gremlins.
don't
Shatner
remember like
even?
Bigfoot? I didn't know Bigfoot, moonlighted as a gremlin, but okay, you know. So what did you
I
hate
remember
about
that.
it? What did you
But
hate
if you
about
want to ask Oma now, I think I've said everything I said about my first game.
it? Okay, okay. We'll move along to the. What do you like about genre mixing there, Omen?
I'm gonna I'm gonna give a little roundabout here, mostly because as a child I hated it. I wanted the two separated. Don't get me wrong. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy, but I didn't want to kind of
Cody.
mix them. I didn't want to mix them at the time. As I've gotten older, I have appreciated it more and more. And I think some of it. How do I want to put this? I guess some of it comes down to is if I'm going into something like Hyperborea or something else, and they tell or Mutant Claw Classics or Gamma World, which I've never played, and I just find it funny because you're like it was readily available. I'm like not in any of the game stores I ever went to as a
I,
child.
that's why I
I don't,
caveated
no, no,
it
no.
for you.
It's not that I didn't want to find it because I bought all sorts of stuff from TSR, but they never supplied it. It was just kind of weird. But the I really I don't mind it when you have that or Thunder the Barbarian or even things that we're talking about ancient lost technologies. That isn't what gets me. I think what has bothered me sometimes is where, if we all remember the early Rogue Trader 40K, where they
Uh-huh.
decided to mix a
Mm.
Warhammer Fantasy and they
Yep.
made the weapons almost identically as strong as the
Right.
Yes, that was the issue that I had with this. Like a rifle should be more powerful than a bow. Um, I think that was my only issue for it. But as I'm getting older, I appreciate it so much more. And it's like I want to play Thundar the Barbarian. I just think that's which is perfect Gamma World. And anyone going back over to what you enjoyed, which was the
All of it.
no, Planet of the Apes, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
perfect example of a world that would fit right. Yep, yep. That would fit right in there, which is, hey, you're coming down to a world that seems that it's a lower technology, and you find out, no, this is what the world was before it got blown up. And I don't think I mind, or the very similar when we were reading the hero's journey, and
Mm-hmm.
I need to
Good
finish up
book.
the second book. That's hey, I don't mind if you do that. It's futuristic. It has everything you need and we have technology that's been lost. I think the problem is that when I was in D&D, I wanted to recreate the mythologies of Greek and stuff like that, which was
Mm-hmm.
not the even though you can reskin a lot of stuff, which did not have that same feeling. It's like I know I want to play the fantasy books I've read in the past.
King Arthur,
And I
Robin
really
Hood.
wish that I'd read Hero's Journey because then I've been like Gamma World all the way. The only exposure I got to Gamma World was in Dragon Magazine. They had
Right.
all these monsters and everything else, and I just felt cheated for it. It's like,
Mm.
where is Gamma World? What's this Gamma World? I
Or
have
for,
never seen it.
for those of the Saxius bent aftermath. I mean aftermath. I still to this day hear horror stories. For me, I think it's a natural progression. Like everybody we know is in their 50s and they've done a lot of, if not all of it. So playing another wizard or another thief or another cleric, yeah, it could feel a little stale or whatnot. Obviously, with great new players in your group, that gives you a little bit more energy and invigoration. But when you've done all these things and you want something new, you could, especially if you think about like I want to play a western, but I'm also in the mood for sci-fi western. Oh wow, I
Firefly. Oh yeah.
right. I was trying to think of like two genres that would mix horribly, and I couldn't think of one or two.
It's usually the rules are the issue if you're mixing genres because
Or the
certain
maybe the setting, I suppose. But
well what I'm saying is certain rules don't work well in the same way as if you're playing an alien RPG and then you're playing D&D and you get up to 7th or 8th level, it doesn't have the same feel.
yeah,
Whereas if you're at first or second level, it's absolutely terrifying when you meet these things. And I think that's part of that's whenever we're talking about, sometimes I think the rules are not conducive to mixing certain genres because they weren't intended for those genres. Um, but I do think that in certain cases, it's, if I want to play, heroic horror, I'm not sure how that works as well. That's a very different feel
yeah,
versus.
I could make it work. Would I want to? I mean, if I had the players that said, "Hey, Shadow, make this, make it happen," I'd be like,
Well,
"Okay,
what I'm saying.
a couple of months."
Well, no, what I'm saying for heroic horror in this case, just saying that it's not that is horror usually comes from the terrible things occurring and the fear that of you could die at any time. Um,
Isolation, being alone, unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar surroundings, unfamiliar, happenings.
but
Plus also the mood and the lighting
yeah,
is a big aspect of it.
but I'm saying, but for heroic, it's very easy not to feel that you're getting trapped. It reminds me of, and James and I did a lot of World of Darkness. If I'm playing Mage, it never fit with me for World of Darkness because I'm like, if I can change the world, I'm always going to have a more positive feeling towards the world than if I can't. You can make the world as dark as you want to, which is, if you get really deep into it, the world's pretty dark as it is in reality. But if I feel I can make real changes, that's one thing. It's the existential dread of Call of Cthulhu, where you can go insane and all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. That's a
Right.
very different feeling towards that.
Sure. Sure.
Well, what occurs to me is like some genre mixing is inevitable just based on the fact that Gygax pretty much loved the dying Earth. And on top of that, you've got Sword of Shannara, which, believe it or not, is a post apocalyptic
Yeah.
future.
I never read it. It's on my
I mean,
list.
so the idea of these post apocalyptic futures where everything had degenerated to like a, you know, Iron Age standard is incredibly common. So when I think like true genre mixing in a game, the first game really that I think nailed it was Shadowrun. Even
I was
though I
thinking
don't care for the rules,
that.
you've got a cyberpunk computer hacking, shaman summoning spirits, mages with their magic that's all based on, alchemy and mathematics and whatever, and this whole thing going on. So it's like that game truly takes
Yeah,
sci-fi
that's like
fantasy and integrates them into one setting.
it's literally like the exact like opposite end of the spectrum of Arduin because it's modern day plus sci-fi, but then all the crazy mythological things that we've ever even heard of here on Earth kind of thing, and go okay, now it's real, it's here. What are you going to do?
I'm I'm going to bring up something which I think helps influence because when we're talking about anyone that's doing things is when you start looking at the movies that are out there, and we
Okay.
talk about books, but really, let's be honest, movies have a much bigger impact. The people who have watched Lord of the Rings is much higher than people who have read it. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's
it's so when you look at growing up as kids, and I know you're a bit older, but James and I are a little closer. Look
yeah,
at Thunder the Barbarian. That was probably the
Hmm.
perfect example of when we were growing up as kids as something that went in there. Or the Herculoids was the other one, which was even before us. Is the Herculoids is these guys are fighting off against like space aliens, but they've got the so we have some of those things. And then Planet of the Apes, like I said, is when you have those things that start entering the culture wherever you are. Even if we want to mention a little bit later, Thundercats. Um,
Even Johnny Quest had,
oh,
you know,
yes,
I'm wearing my Venture Brothers shirt
yeah,
in honor. Uh, had all kinds of weird crap. It had its element of horror. It had sci-fi in a modern day setting. It had monsters and things like mummies and you know
the invisible monsters, the technology. Yeah, but those were all. What I'm just trying to bring these in is, Gygax had all the books, but he didn't have. He had some of the movies, but now when we started growing up, they started mixing more and more of it in there.
yeah.
And the reason I like Thundar is Thundar to me is the perfect post-apocalyptic D&D style game.
Yep.
It has everything. It's got your light sword. It's got like the Mintac. It's got all of these. But
You're gonna
all of
love
these,
Barrows and Borderlands then, because
yeah,
it's very that, but throw in more black powder and psionics and magic and robots and mutants and aliens and dinosaurs and just
oh,
yeah. I mean, that way you don't like if you find the really, like, let's say, the perfect genre mixing game. I think you'll find yourself less inclined to bounce back and forth between other games. Like, well, I want to play a Western. Well, we'll just go into a Western town for you and you'll get that knocked out of your system and have a couple adventures there, but we're still in the same world or the same setting. And you can, get rid of some of that clutter. There's no need for Boot Hill. I'm never going to play Boot Hill. I love that game, but the likelihood that I'm going to play
especially
it.
third edition.
Third edition was absolutely correct. The apogee of
Great
that
edition.
game, but I mean, okay, maybe a one shot or at a convention or what have you. But I mean, are you really going to sign up for a year long Boot Hill campaign?
it's
Well, what if you took Boot Hill and then you combined it with like Bone Tomahawk type stuff?
Sure, sure, or even go a step further and play Deadlands or Shadows of Brimstone or a bunch of other games that
Right,
it,
except
it,
instead going so far as Deadlands, which I love the original Orange books. I'm just saying you're playing what is effectively a straight up Western. Oh yeah. Except every now and then the
yeah,
players run into something crazy like a vampire or something,
or
right?
or a
You got to
werewolf
figure it out.
or a serial killer or
Oh
there's a
yeah,
lot of things you
you
could
could
do in
easily mix it.
yeah.
so
Also, one thing I want to comment on what Omnow said. This is a legend, Omnow, so don't,
go for it.
send me a bot you disagree. But apparently the world that the Thundercats landed on was Earth.
Right, right. No, it was. It absolutely was. And it was the future
Like
Earth.
in the
Yeah,
far, far future, and like
yeah,
Mumra was like the last human,
yeah,
basically.
Hmm.
yeah.
I didn't watch a lot
And
of
all of
Thundercats.
his critters that like ran around and served him and shit were like mutants.
That that's why I brought it up. Is we had those growing up as
Yeah,
kids to incorporate
Yeah.
those two genres together. That's what I was trying to use that exact. And you're right. They did land on Earth, but that was the whole thing of, hey, look, they're fighting with swords, they're fighting with hand-to-hand weapons, and they still had like, tanks and stuff like this. So it was completely ridiculous. But
Yeah, they're all fighting with melee weapons, but they're driving around in big tanks with laser cannons on them.
yeah,
uh-huh.
well,
But
as long as the players are willing to get into it, I think that the biggest
That's
negative.
the key, isn't it? It is player buy-in. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter what game you're playing. You could be playing the greatest, fantasy RPG, but if everybody's not on board, then it's gonna blow chunks. But if
It,
everybody's like
it's a
in
bait and
agreement,
switch that gets me more angry than anything. That's what would bug me is if you tell me I'm going to play a certain game and you do a bait and switch,
yeah, I don't
and
think
then
I've ever done that.
it's one thing if you're hinting it towards things, but I have seen it where, hey, you're playing this game and You signed up for heroic fantasy, and all of a sudden it goes over and it becomes like,
Yeah, I
hey,
can see that where the truth of the game is that it's a post-apocalyptic world, but nobody told you, and then you find out, and you're like, yeah, I'm really not feeling it. I was just going for, let's go fight the Dark Lord. I don't want the Dark Lord to pull out his laser gun and freaking zap my somebody in my cohort.
well, no, no. What I'm
Mm.
saying is, oh, now you found a spaceship, and now you go fly off, and like, okay, I don't mind having a little of the treasure. Let's be honest, a wand is no different than having a gun or something like that. It's not that people have the problem with that. The problem that I suddenly would have is, oh, guess what? Now you find the spaceship, and now we go off into space, and we're going to change our whole rule system. And it's like, I did not sign up. No, no offense to it. I didn't sign up for a traveler game when you said we're going to be playing D&D. I would
Yep.
feel the same way if I suddenly went over and said we're doing a traveler game. Then it suddenly felt like, hey, now we're going to switch over to
And you crash landed on a primitive world, and there's no escape, and you're going to live out your traveler character's life in, Camelot.
yeah. That's where I feel like when we're talking about a bait and switch kind of aspect. It's, but other than that, I agree. It's you can do certain things. I think that it's of course I talk about Alien. Certain systems I think work better, and again, it's not that I'm against one or the other. If I don't like a system, I'll drop out after a bit and say, hey, invite me back when there's a different one.
Mhm.
Um, it's just one of those things. And speaking of Tin Car, I was actually listening and typing in the message when Tin Car is doing his stuff right now, and he was talking about 9/11 and things when he was there, which was interesting. But I I don't mind one or the other. I like trying different systems, and what works in one system may not work in another. My problem with Shadowrun, and I actually like fourth edition more than I did the previous edition, so a lot of people didn't because they felt it changed up a lot. I I liked certain systems in there, but I'll be honest, Shadowrun falls apart in certain areas. I hated the history, and so to me, it was like I'm going to change some of this. I will say this much when we're talking about because when we usually talk genre bending, and it's pretty easy to do some of them. When you do fantasy post-apocalyptic combination, um, what I think really helps players buy in is it's a world they're familiar with, and it helps that we have media such as Life After People. I love that, and it makes it so easy to just incorporate that in.
Mhm.
Um, it's like, well, what would it look like? And you go, let me go look at like what Chernobyl looks like. Life After People was great for a lot of these things, and you could say, well, how
Mhm.
does it ruin? How does it go for this?
Or you can go to Detroit.
Mad Max was another good example, and it's like, well, and here's the funny thing: I don't mind the genre addition, like you said, for that. In certain ways, I would rather have multiple genres in there because it makes it more interesting. I'm going to use The Walking Dead as an example. It did not interest me because there wasn't enough variety of monsters and things. Whereas I don't mind having elements of a Walking Dead campaign. I don't mind elements of this. I want something there. That said, I don't want it so ridiculous like Palladium's Rifts, where it's just like, okay, too much for me. Um,
Yeah, yeah. That was at first blush, I bought into it, but after I read the whole book, I'm like, okay, I like a lot of this, but I don't like the world setting. So I'm going to do something different with the mechanics and the character classes and all that stuff, and made my own thing. And cool. It was a
Well,
very rigid world with very little room to
the big
make
mistake
yourself a
that
nice little
people who
homestead.
want to play Rift make Shadow
Hmm.
is they think that they should allow the players to play any OCC they want, when in reality, you pick a region and that's what you play. So, like, if I were going to run the game, um, I would definitely set it in Chicago and everyone would be coalition. And then, or I would set it in North Texas and everyone would be vampire fighters.
Hmm.
And if you
Okay.
do that, then the game works okay. And if you want to slide something extra in from like, Dinosaur to World or whatever, you can do that.
Hmm.
But I've seen so many Rift games get destroyed specifically because the GM was like, yeah, just pick whatever. And then like I show up with a Samus pilot and some other dude shows up from the Wildwood world or whatever. He's basically just a cowboy.
Wormwood. Hmm.
Like, what's he going to do to me? I'm flying Mach 5 with freaking railgun, right?
What's up,
That's not
Cal?
cool.
Eldrad.
So, you
It,
know, so
Mhm.
that's the biggest problem with Palladium is too many people think they should be able to play the whole game. And
I
you
think
don't play the whole game. You play like one section of the game
I
and
yeah,
whatever. But there was something one of you. Oh, I wanted to point this out too. A really well-known fact, I think, by everyone. Um, the world of Oerth and Greyhawk is not only post-apocalyptic, but it's United States.
I thought
I
some
can
of
see
it was Europe because like some of it would represent France and some of it. Oh well, doesn't really.
Mm,
Did you ever read his
look
when
at the
Gygax?
coastline. The
Did
coastline's on the East Coast.
no, I understand that, but I think he also said certain ones were based off of certain European. It's like Europeans on, yeah. It's like you said, some of it was the Americas. Um, just
Hmm.
like I saw that Alexander McCree showed that he just flipped Europe. Um, he just flipped it.
Yeah, McCree just flipped literally the Byzantine Empire
Yeah,
map upside down.
yeah, which I'm okay with in certain ways.
Yeah,
No,
that's fine.
what I was going to refer to is, did any of you read when Gygax brought out his like choose your own adventure books called
Mhm.
Sagard?
No, no.
No.
So, so in one of the books, you're basically a barbarian and you're going through, and I enjoyed it. It was kind of the like Lone Wolf, choose your the fighting fantasy style of books where you rolled up your stats and you could gain levels and things. And in one part of it, your character goes underground. You are in kind of the not quite the barrier peaks, but very similar. Where you go into
Mhm.
like a spaceship kind of thing, and they actually have like ice golems and stuff like this. And so what it reminded me very similar was the what the I want to say the runners, but you remember the one we're referring to. I keep getting Running Man in my head, but that's not the one. The
Logan's
one that
Run.
Logan's Run, where they had the robot there that was freezing everyone.
Hmm.
It had a very similar feel to that in part of it. Um, and
Well,
I agree
I
with
mean, north of the Black Ice in Greyhawk now was the City of the Gods,
Hmm.
but the gods were just androids.
Hmm.
I
Gygax had
mean,
no problems with it. It was
No, I mean the very first white
and
box.
then
If
the
you look at
egg
the
of Ku.
encounters,
the Martians. Oh yeah,
or
the
the
Green
white
Martian.
apes, or
Yeah,
I think there were robots and androids and other things you could randomly bump into according to the encounter tables.
even the DMG, the first edition, had rules for
Converting to
lasers and
Boot and
stuff.
Gamma World.
Yep. The other one I want to.
Now,
Um,
I gotta wonder if that wasn't a little bit of more marketing than ideology, but at the same time, it's just that you got magic. There's a whole bunch, especially in the DMG, there were a whole bunch of magic items and psionics that could allow you to go to a brand new freaking world like that, and suddenly you're, in Tombstone, Arizona, or suddenly you're, uh, post-apocalyptic, Ontario. So, I mean, especially if you think about it, when you're a DM and you're new at it, and something happens that causes the players to end up in a brand new world. What are you going to do? You're just going to make it another D&D world? No, you make it some weird other world, and then the players decide whether or not they're and how hard they're going to try to get back to their own world. I could see that going either way. The players decide, you know what, this is awesome. Let's stay here. Or
I,
this place sucks. Let's get home at any cost.
Hmm.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I also think, though, to be fair, first edition was to bring those players from the white box style games into it. And if they were playing with Martians and things like that, you had to incorporate them in. Um, I just yeah, look. There's a Florida RPG coming out too by Man Short, so just so you're aware. But it's um, the I I don't mind even the ridiculous games as long as I know what they are when I play them. Like I bought my son. You want to talk about genre bending? I bought my son. Oh, what was it called? It's the one where you play food, uh, and you get to pick.
Oh, yeah, you were telling us about that one a
I was
while.
showing it off, and actually, I was looking at the rules, and I think this is what DM James is saying as well. And this is the problem with 5e. DMs are too afraid to tell their players, we're playing such and such world, such and such races are not allowed. And the problem that you have with WotC right now is they're too afraid to tell you if you're playing in Dragonlance, this is what you're playing. This is what it's limited to. If you're playing Eberron, this is
Well,
what you're limited to.
devil's advocate here a moment. I could see where, if, because I kind of did this. I just realized once upon a time I made a world. It was a post apocalyptic, high tech, futuristic world. I didn't tell the players that it went through an apocalypse so far back that, it would be like talking about Atlantis. So nobody knows. Even the elves don't remember. And eventually they'd find out that it was, in fact, once upon a time, a high tech world. Hell, the world we're on now could be like that. We could discover Atlantis or whatever, someday and realize, oh my God, they used to have, flying cars and all this stuff, and you may want to like spring that on them, or it's a surprise. So you don't tell them, but at the same time, like what Omen was saying, that's the old bait and switch, and some players could, really, really object to that, thinking that they're, in a fantasy world. But what's funny about that is that the characters themselves could actually get that upset. They could be like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was a great warlord, and now I'm finding out that once upon a time, the people in the past." Made war like we can't even imagine. I wish I could do a Trump impersonation right now. Where they had flying tanks and nuclear weapons and all this crap, and your little army with swords and sticks is nothing compared to the ancient days. That character could get very upset, but that would be kind of cool. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think it's okay if you do that at the end of a campaign. You
Yeah.
found this, here's the big reveal, and you say, okay. And then you say, guys, the campaign is effectively over. If you want to keep playing, we can do so. But then usually people, again, hey, let's do something new. And, I think campaigns do need an end sometimes. I think people are afraid to do that. The other one, I
Mhm.
think, is, again, you can always revisit same characters 5 or 10 years in the future.
Mhm.
You just give yourself a break. It's like, oh, okay. But I, I think that's where that's okay to do it. And I don't think that people mind a lot of the genre bending necessarily. I do think that I was listening to Alexander McCree's talk about how he was doing the players and said, "Oh, this is a great game. They're doing this," and then they're playing. I forgot what it was, but they were playing one thing, and then all of a sudden, riffs started opening, and they realized they were suddenly playing riffs, and all the players said, "You did this. It was a bait and switch." They all got pissed off and quit. It is.
I've had players back in the old days. They would literally tell me, "No techno. We don't want no techno." I'm like, "Okay, sucks to be you." This
It's
one friend especially absolutely hated it, like nobody's business. But mind you, he had just discovered fantasy, and just read the Lord of the Rings, and was bawling his eyes out when he got to the end. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great story, but there's a million more out there. Why don't you pick up another one? It's just because that one's over, another one can start. But he's like, no techno, don't put any techno in this. I hate techno. I'm like, really? I mean, I was wearing my Travis Morgan, the warlord of DC Comics,
oh yes, I love that.
t-shirt
Yeah.
just yesterday. Thinking about it, it's like that was freaking love that. Hollow Earth, but better than TSR did it with with the one guy from the the above world coming down with his limited supply of ammunition and having to make it work last, and learning all the things he needed to survive in this world of sorcery and psionics and dinosaurs and chicks that turned into cats and weird crap. um
I oh no, I did that one. I think the other one, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I'm expecting to come in for a little bit. Um, there was again, I'll tell you the one that I'll tell you what really I had a problem with, and I had to really get more into it. Was, not, I don't like the system, but actually it's well written, and every time I've played it's done well. Has been Numenera, where they mixed everything so much together that it actually kind of lost. It was, guess what? You have the virtual world, you have the metaphysical world, you have like an astro. I mean, it was everything all together all at once. And the problem is that it was so much all at once at the same time
like
that
in the old days when kids would go to the soda fountains and put a little bit of everything into their glass, and then it would taste like ass, or
yeah, because it you have melded so many different things into it, it lost the flavor of every individual, and,
Mhm.
and in some ways it just, and it's not the system that bothered me so much. I liked some of the ideas to it. It was they there was too much in there at once for as a DM to comprehend it, let alone, it's like the idea is that there have been 9 previous worlds before the current one, and it's a
Nice
billion years in
photo.
the future. um oh yeah. um
Yeah,
and
yeah. In Shadowrun, you're in the fifth world
yes.
because they're trying to base it on the Mayan calendar or whatever. But like one of the things in the chat, I think Coco wrote, I think that could work really well though if you had all the players make their player characters, but use like their normal name, and they took a ride and ended up in a fantasy world, and then
Oh,
they
the roller
remember
coaster.
everything about that. They remember everything that they know, but they don't know anything about the world they find themselves in.
Hmm.
That would be, I mean, yeah. So basically, I'm saying D&D the cartoon, but
Yes.
role playing
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could work.
Oh,
Even
You know,
if you use like, especially if, like you use back in V&V Villains and Vigilantes, your first character was supposed to be yourself. So your players around the table would say, "Yeah, Joe, you've only got a 3 charisma," or "Bobby, you've only got an 8 dex." But everybody
right?
would vote on everybody else's stats. Kind of vote. So that everybody would be honest because
it's a humbling experience, is what it is.
right, because then it would be your turn. It's like, well, gosh, I know I have an intelligence more than 5, but I guess not. But then you'd play yourself and figure out how you got superpowers, doing the same thing, but suddenly you guys go camping and a weird fog surrounds you, and you're on a D&D planet. That would be kind of fun once.
Well, it would be fun just because the players would get to keep all of their modern kind of meta info,
Yep.
but then they would have to role play as if they had no idea what anything in the world actually was. So
Well,
that
a
could
good
be
DM
pretty.
would make everything different. Your orcs wouldn't be, identical to the monster manual orcs, and your trolls would not be susceptible to fire, be something else. You
Well,
know.
I want to. It's like Hyperborea, and I don't care if people think I'm saying that wrong. Um,
You do you, man.
yeah, I'm just doing my own thing over here. There are orcs, and they are pig-faced orcs, but the reason they exist is because do you know how, like in old school D&D, you had the demon pigs or devil pigs?
yep, yep,
Yeah, yeah. And the stench cows.
Right. Well, okay, the devil pigs were like demonic lycanthropes that could be pigs or very fat men, and they
yes,
Okay.
loved to eat human flesh, and they had like a badass charm ability they could use so many times a day. Well,
yep,
how they're saying Hyperborea is, or Hyperborea, is there is those things, they exist. They're demons, but they're not called demon pigs. They got like an actual weird name, but they reproduced with pigs. So, the Pictish people there. And the result is savage pig-faced humanoids, which everyone just calls orcs. So, yeah, there's a reason for your pig-faced orcs in Hyperborea. Um,
I
and
think.
I thought that's kind of a neat thing.
I I think that part. Oh, I don't mind genre. I think though, and this is sometimes what people forget about, is limitations
Take
create.
care, Eldred.
do cause creativity. And sometimes when you throw everything in there, which is what the problem with the modern dating is, it's just so vanilla. Nothing feels special. Nothing feels hidden. Nothing feels like there's, it's like, oh well, this group will get along with this group, and we are. And it's just like,
Or
it,
there's like too much around every corner.
yes, it doesn't feel. I this is part of, what gets me about some of it is, this is why I actually liked Dark Sun so much, was you knew it was a post-apocalyptic world, and to be fair, World of Darkness is too. As you got more and more books later on, you started finding out more of the history, and you kind of spoil it for yourself at the end of like, well, I know everything. But if you're a player that doesn't know any of this, which always surprises me, is when you play like Lord of the Rings and you realize the person has never read Lord of the Rings, or you knows nothing about the world. And I was like, man, I immersed myself in all of that. So I ruined the surprises for myself, which was the same thing that actually Gygax mentioned in the Dungeon Master's Guide, is
Mhm.
you don't want the players to know the rules. And while we, as DMs, were like, no, we have to know it all. As a player, you lose out on that wonder and excitement of finding something new.
Mhm.
I
And
see.
I
it's
tend
so
to
we.
think that people who really, really like Dark Sun are just into leather gimp outfits.
No, you know what? We live in Florida, or I'm in Florida right now. No, it's just too freaking humid and hot to have to put on clothes. I'm just wandering around in my boxers all the time, and it makes me feel much better.
See, the boxers, that's
You
just
need
old
that
man
energy.
energy, but Dark Sun with all the leather and spikes and stuff, that's a whole different kind of energy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were all Gore fans in the game and outside the game. Just saying.
You
Um,
know what though? I'm okay with it. Having grown up in the early '80s. Oh, come on, come on. If you look at all the exploitative films between like 1981 and 1986, that they took all of that
why
and
are
did
you
the same.
leaving out the '70s, bro?
Because they didn't have quite as much as the fantasy. It was the early '80s to mid '80s where you find the ridiculous, from Conan the Barbarian, the Sword and the Sorcerer. Where they all did the knockoffs. Adorak and stuff like this. You're like, oh, okay,
Pro and
and it's part of
Beastmaster.
it. They it was all the Mad Max feel, except now we're just going to do swords and, it's horses instead of motorcycles.
Mhm.
So,
Mm. Well, I mean, okay, speaking also of genre bending, what if you're playing a fantasy role-playing game, say AD&D, whatever, and then like one of your players, you get into a battle or they attack a group of bandits or something, but they spare the female bandit. And then he like just smacks her upside the head and puts an iron collar on her and forces her to like follow him around, at the end of a chain. So
Mhm.
you've now had D&D mixed with gore.
oh yeah.
Now, personally, I think it's kind
So
of
you've
weird,
heard
but
about my Sunday game, have you?
No, I thought that was your Friday game. That was your Friday game.
No, that was my Sunday game
With one
that guy.
individual,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But
Um,
mm,
players are gonna do some crazy crap, and depending on, like how well you know one another, you can either say a freaking no, or all right, just for a little while, dude, get it out of your system, and then we're gonna move on.
right. And the players, of course, we're older now, so if we push the
Okay.
boundary, someone pushes back, like, okay, yeah, you're right, that's overdone. Um, but I remember as a kid, it was hard to get enough people to play. So I was playing with people I did not enjoy playing with
Mm.
a lot of the times, because it was hard enough to get 4 or 5 players. Nowadays, as much as we knock it with the internet and everything else, it's not that hard to find groups of 5 to 7 if you need to. It's like, who's interested? I'm in. Oh, we want to talk about genre building? Let's all talk about Pugmire. And you now have, awakened
Greatest toys
animals.
ever.
Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
still waiting to play that game. I have deleted a lot of PDFs
uh,
off my devices in the last 3 years, but that's one I will never delete because one of these days I'm going to play it and I'm going to play it like a boss.
well, but in
and
that one you could
Omenau,
do.
I still have my Pomeranian cleric.
Yes,
who
Yes, I need
serves
it.
the Church of Man.
Yep. No,
Just letting you know.
no, I need to set it up at some point. I was going to do the Alien game first, but no, the
2026, Pugmire or bust.
hey, you know what though? I'm waiting for some of the news. I enjoy the you can make that into the one thing I like about it is the way the game is you could make that a super dark game if you wanted. It can be a light game. It can be, the post-apocalyptic where well, it is post-apocalyptic, but part of it is you could find the humans and, it could be hunky-dory. I mean, that's as far as they've left it really wide open on how you want to play. So you can play it
Mhm.
really fun and light, or you can play it
Or you go
really
full
dark
on
and
Watership
serious.
Down.
If not worse. I mean, you do have your undead equivalent, and you have the sea of acid. I mean, you can really get very dark. But what I love about it is again talking about films we've seen. It kind of reminds me of the Time Machine,
Mhm.
where you find just the old things. You can do it with the Mad Max style, with buildings and things like that. When you've got you've got
Eloy.
the well, and in that case, it's guess what? I don't mind having certain players if you go through it. That's like, okay, you want to play a bird, you want to play a rabbit, you want to play a cat, and you want to play a dog. Okay, we can work this out.
Mhm.
um, but in certain other games, depending on how you want to do it, it's like everyone only plays dogs, and I think that's one of the things that this is why I was saying D&D because it's the biggest RPG out there. Is they don't tell the DM it's okay to tell players no. In
Yeah.
fact, your game will be better if you limit it and you get it in there. The problem that you have is if you do one or the other, it's just like in Star Wars. If you don't want players to play droids, then tell them you aren't allowed to play droids. It's okay. And I wish they would do more of that.
I mean, you are speaking nothing but the truth there. Everything you just said is the truth. It's like sometimes it's the limitations you put on the game that will make the game way more interesting. Like
Well, the
okay,
challenge is really the key, isn't it? If
yeah,
you walk
yeah.
if you walk through a game and it's just peaches and cream, milk and honey everywhere you go, like the line from the Matrix, humans are going to rebel and go find something else without maybe even knowing that what they actually crave is boundaries and a challenge that's worthy of their mettle.
Well, I mean, we're talking about some of post-apocalyptic, with which, of course, I was saying with Dark Sun. But part of what I also liked about Dark Sun is you knew that there were dungeons under the ground, and they
Mm-hmm.
made sense. In this case, like the world had turned to ash, and
Yeah.
you start. We talk about the challenge, but the other part is exploration and discovering the world, and that's one of the great things of being out there. If it's similar enough, um, the players, I think part of the reason that fantasy has done so well is that people can imagine what it was in the past easier than them they can imagine the future of where it's going to be. It's we don't have a
Hmm.
unified vision. I think we had a more unified vision of the future in the 50s of what we
Yeah.
thought the world
Oh
would
yeah.
become versus
We were all wrong, but yes.
right. That's my
Mm,
point. But there was a more unified vision of what the future would be like, or what space would be like, and now it's diverged in so many different things that we don't have that commonality. Whereas if I
mhm,
tell people it's going to be like the Middle Ages, they have a frame of reference. Not that it has
mhm.
to be there, but yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
I mean, that's look, it depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to do the romance stuff with Pugmire, then yeah, you're gonna get furries. For me, I just kind of like my dog, and I just think it's really cool, and I think it'd be really cool to pretend that you know the dogs that I know and have the if they were smart and say okay, let's make them humanistic and move along.
Mhm.
That said, is
Yeah, I kind of viewed Pugmire as just a more kind of organized Gamma world.
yeah.
Mhm.
I have
Except,
another.
the mutant animals had obviously stabilized into actual species, kind of like, I mean, in Pugmire, one of the big bad guys are basically batters from freaking Gamma World, right? The
Okay.
the badgers, the
Yeah,
Hmm.
badger folk or whatever.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I didn't take it to be a furry thing, but then again, I could see I'm going to agree with Ohm now here. It depends who you're playing with. If you're playing with
Yep.
a bunch of
Yep.
weirdos, then it could absolutely be a furry thing. But if you're
Yeah,
playing with a bunch of like
if you're
bros,
playing with Max Liao and a couple other people, can guarantee it would never deviate
yeah, it's not
into
going to
that.
be weird.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
It's not
mean,
going to make you uncomfortable, is I guess a better phrase.
You know
It's
what?
well,
like,
I've always
or
wanted to make
overly comfortable for some of these weirdos.
yeah,
I've always wanted to make a game engine or run a game like I ran back in the day, which was literally like sliders
yeah. And there's
where
another
the
genre
See,
where
that
party,
we,
would work.
yeah,
you know what I mean, where the party is, they know ahead of time they're going to go and they're going to hit all the genres, you know what I mean, and until they find the one that they like, and
well,
the minute they don't like it, they push the buttons randomly and walk through the door and they're in a new world. I love that idea. It was one of my favorite shows of all time, just because you could literally explore all that, kind of like the original Star Trek. You know,
Right.
I miss that. Where every week, it's a new adventure on a new world with new mysteries and new wonders to behold, and
New
shenanigans
chicks for
to
Kurt
get
to
into.
sleep with.
well, you're not trapped into whatever's
Giggity.
current, which I think,
Hmm.
for someone that, yeah, if you start having ADD or equivalents, like, okay, I'm getting tired of being in the same world with the same stuff.
Hmm.
Let's move from this to this. And again, this is why I, I don't mind playing different games or different styles of games. It's different rule systems entirely. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do that. And part of it is I have so many game systems I'd love to try.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm,
there's,
Yeah.
uh, just like I was talking to Saxius, and we were talking about doing a 40K, and he's like, "Look, if you're going to do it, you better tell me what you want to play," because I kind of like, you know what? Let's do a Rogue Trader game, and I want to be an orc, which you can be in a Rogue Trader game. That's a completely different feel than if you're doing Dark Inquisition. Same setting, same stuff, but very different feeling, especially in power level and everything else. Um,
hmm
and the Rogue Trader's allowed to the Rogue Trader's allowed to do all sorts of stuff that no one else
Well, they
is.
they are the power above almost everything on their ship.
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh,
but the
that's
thing,
So
they're
another
allowed to
good
have
yeah,
example.
sanctioned.
Off grid,
Actually,
Quantum
yeah, they're
Leap.
allowed to sanction Xenos.
yeah,
You know,
you can actually have Xenos and maybe an Eldari girlfriend and carry a bunch of weird Jakari tech. You're a rogue trader, man. You can do what you want.
that's right. As long as you don't go too far, as long as you're expanding the empire, you get free reign. It's whenever you screw
Yeah,
up.
it's funny. You guys are talking about that, and I was thinking about someone once commenting on Traveler, which I always thought was supposed to be like that. Going to new worlds and doing new things instead of just focusing on mercantile speculation and trading and back and forth profit. No, man. Yeah, it's part of Traveler, but I mean, wouldn't the best part be going to brand new worlds and exploring and seeing shit you don't see
hmm
every day?
I think the
Well,
issue with
here's the
Traveler.
thing,
Oh,
homie.
good.
I can answer this super quick. If you're playing in the Third Imperium, inevitably there's going to be a free merchant in the group, and you're going to end up just doing that. If you play in Traveler 2300, you're going to be contracted by governments to go explore worlds that are way off of different, travel whatevers, and
Warp
hey,
lines
you
or
might
whatever
get
you
a
call it.
custom Kfers or something, whatever, right? So that's kind of what you're talking about. You want is 2300.
I
Most
I have
players will never own a starship, but they might be given one by one of the governments to go explore things.
I'm going to
I
bring
mean,
up
that's the
where,
whole point of the box set Bayarn. I
yeah,
mean, you leave French space and you go 99 light years to the Serpentis cluster, and there's like 20 something systems there that you're supposed to explore and whatever. Plus, there's terrorists on the ship that want to blow it up, but whatever, you know.
there's, well, part of what I think, and this is where we talk about scale. Traveler tends to be at a smaller scale. Rogue Trader is really intended to be that you are a power unto your own to to like conquer worlds. And what's supposed to happen, which what I always do is, which is my imagination going through, is the Rogue Trader leaves with one ship and he comes back with 12. You know, and he says, "Look at me and look at all the other stuff I've got." And yeah, you can look at my orc sidekick over here and the Eldari that's come over here and this shaper over here. And yes, they'll always stay on the ship, but they're and of course everyone's like, you're pretty heretical, but you you conquered like 100 light years out. We'll let it slide.
Yeah, as long as you're producing,
Yes.
you know, good results for the emperor, the Imperium, they're like, yeah, okay, and but here's another thing too, Omenau, like the smallest rogue trader ship is maybe hundreds of times bigger than the average free trader and traveler.
Mhm.
Right. Well, that's what I mean is you have like a hundred
I mean,
thousand
these things
people
are
in
like
your
a
ship.
mile long.
Yeah, at
Mhm.
least, at
Yeah,
least.
I was just thinking about something. I wonder if it's like, okay, you guys are talking about like scale, right? With
Yeah.
with Traveler being like a real low level scale versus uh, the other game, Rogue Trader being like an epic level. It's kind of like in D&D. I find that a lot of people that complain about these things want to keep their games really low powered, like really low powered, where the characters, if when they die, nobody misses them, no matter what level they are. Versus these other games, like if you were a rogue trader and you died, I mean, there would be thousands of people who have to
who
do
would
stuff.
die with you, but no one
Yeah.
would remember any of you.
Not just maybe not that, but I mean, there would be
Remember, in the
consequences.
Imperium, billions of humans die every single day.
Oh
No
yeah.
one cares.
Well, I was
Right.
gonna.
I mean, there would be consequences and inevitabilities because of that rogue trader. Was off the map. Well, there may be an investigation. Maybe not. Depends on how you want to run it.
You're not wrong. An inquisitor could be like, wait a minute now. That rogue trader was doing great work for us. He like, brought 100 worlds into compliance, and all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah.
And then you've got an inquisitor team going out to try and figure out what. I mean, yeah, and maybe if the rogue traders died, you could have the players make an inquisition team, and their whole job could be to
Solve the
go
mystery.
try to figure out what happened.
Well, I'm
And
gonna.
also,
Mhm.
Shadow, I wanted to say another thing real quick. Sorry, Omanal.
No, no, go for it. Go.
Um, the thing you said about you wouldn't like a traveler game where you crashed on a primitive world, I would
I
love
didn't say
that.
that. I didn't say that.
Oh, then maybe Omanal said that.
No, no, no.
I
What we
would
were
love
saying
that
is that you
shit,
were
man. I
stuck.
would be like trying to rebuild my starship engine out of like bits and pieces. It would be
Looking
like
out in the sand,
Bruce
like
Campbell
Gilligan's
versus the
Island
Living
style.
Dead. I'd just be building shit.
Well, what
This is
what
my boomstick, you primates.
well, no,
Yeah.
no, no. No, no.
Absolutely. I mean,
My issue would be not that you crashed. My issue would be that everything I wanted to play in there, I'm now stuck there. Like if you suddenly say you crash, oh, and you can't rebuild your ship because they don't have the technology, and now I'm stuck on this world. Again, I wouldn't mind if you told me, hey, this would be like Warlord. Hey, we're gonna go. That's fine. But if I
mhm.
was gonna go play a traveler game and I have these grand aspirations, and then you stick me in a low technology world where I can never get off, I would be pissed off. That's what
You
I'm
kind of,
referring
yeah,
to.
Well,
totally.
Yeah,
if they made sure I could never get off in unfair ways, yeah, I'd be pissed.
yeah, that's what
Mhm.
I'm saying.
But
but
like,
it, like
if
But at
I
the
tweaking
had the
some
same
abilities.
time,
ability
I
to
mean,
start from low tech and work my way up to the tech
but
I
you know what?
needed
I
to
mean,
repair
think about it
things,
like this, right? Say you're 400-ton fat trader, right? Not a free trader,
yeah,
because I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Crash lands on a planet, and you're never getting off, right? But we're going to start a generational game to see what kind of society would develop around a combination of having limited high tech stuff and people who know what to do with it and plan for the future with the regular common folk of the planet, like an offshoot of humanity, but really primitive, and run generations and generations to like build up this really like weird world of the royalty has this high tech crap. It's not really super high tech by the time
your
anybody else is
characters
here,
could become gods, literally.
Well,
right?
I'm gonna bring this up because that to me is what
Coconut
2300.
reactors.
Well, to me that is what
Gilligan's
2300
Feral
is.
World. Nice, Paul.
And if someone tells me, "Hey, we're gonna do a generational game of where we're gonna start off with you crashing on the planet and you're gonna see yourself slowly work your way up,"
Welcome to the show,
I'm
Paul.
it's this is where when we talk about setting expectations for players, I'm okay with that. Because you aren't doing I don't feel like you're doing a bait and switch. You've already told me what you're doing.
Hmm.
It's very, that's where I think that, when you start talking about things, that's where I think the mismatch is. As long as you tell players that you're going to do it, or if
Hmm.
you say, "Hey, look, we're going to do an Old West game, but there is going to be some supernatural in there," I'm okay with that. I just
It's
don't.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The very, very first Boot Hill module, or no, it was the Maya. I don't know if it's the first one. The first one was Mad Mason. The second one, the Lost Mines of the Conquistador, or something like that, actually had a ghost in the last portion of the module. So, what is that? I mean, that wasn't in the original rulebook. So, just you're tacking on a module with a some new rules, right? Because that was a thing, right? Welcome to the
It,
show, Xnard.
it's
well,
not
you
where
know
they're
what?
dominant.
Being in this chat with the two of you for
Mhm.
this period of time, I've been asked multiple times by people on my streams and stuff, like why I all of a sudden, even though I've owned the Hyborian books for years and years, have decided to run it. And it's basically because of what you're saying. I like the fact that if you want to, there's a lot of genre mixing there. It's AD&D, but with Cthulhu and Ashton Clark
Mhm.
Smith and possibly ray guns, right? But
Yeah.
the other thing is, it's new. The
Yes.
players are not going to just instantly know what everything I put on the table is.
Okay.
Like if I
I'm
put a
gonna.
Chocho or a Man of Ling or some crazy shit like that on the table, they're not going to know what that is. They're going to be like, I mean, I might let them make an intelligence check to see if their character knows what it is, but like what are they going to think the first time they run into a deep one or a deep one hybrid?
I'm,
Now, the
I'm gonna
player
bring
might
up.
know because, we play Mansions of Madness all the time.
Hmm.
But the characters are going to be like, what in the hell is this thing?
I
And
Yeah.
maybe the players won't know. And I think that takes, I mean, could I have ran OSE and just ran vanilla D&D or AD&D? Yeah, I could have. But this, I think, is going to be way more interesting because
I'm
of the mashing of the different genres and things like that.
What do you guys one at a time think about the newness factor of something like uh, this game you're talking about, or other games that mix genres to make something brand new for just those reasons?
I'm gonna bring up two different things here, which is what he's talking about. One
Yeah, you go
is
first, though, now.
Hyperborea has that limitation where, as a DM, if you're getting tired of everyone playing different races, your race is all humans. There's nothing really special about one race over another. It's where you're located, which is kind of the reason I like Hyperborea. I don't have to worry about elves and halflings and all the other crap that's out there. Well, okay, you're an Atlantean, you're a common man, there. That's part of the limitation in that aspect. But now you're still in a fantastic world. I think also newness is, some people want, which I've seen from my friend's wife, she feels the comfort in knowing everything about the system and everything there. That's one. But then the other part is like for myself, that's why I mentioned Dark Sun. I had been so burned out of fantasy, middle age, D&D. It was done that over and over again, that when Dark Sun came out, especially since I had run just previously a Monty Hall campaign where there was so much treasure and so much magic, it burned me out as a DM, that Dark Sun was refreshing. Guess what? And I still appreciate now, because I'm starting to appreciate our ancestors in the Neolithic age and stuff. You've got bone and obsidian, and when you throw a weapon, it can break. It doesn't do quite as much damage. Yes, you're tougher, so you're a little bit harder to die, but it also, for players that have never encountered this, oh my god, they don't know enough about the world. It's shocking.
I mean, if you
It's
get out in the
Yeah.
wilderness, you could literally just die of dehydration.
Oh, exactly. And I kind of
I
liked
mean,
that
just
aspect. It was also, when you did have create water and stuff, that meant something. You didn't get lots of water. You got enough to
yeah.
survive for just a few members of your party. You were not getting the massive henchmen that you could. It also made traveling, like, when you later on went into what the Sea of Silt and stuff, you know,
Hmm.
oh, now, of course, spoilers for anyone that's in there. There is a dragon in the center of it, if you can get there. And then the other part is, they were talking about some of the giants. The giants could walk certain areas, but you could not. Um, it really, a part of that exploration of a new world is some of the enjoyment that we miss when we're, like if I've been playing Greyhawk for 10 years, I feel like I know everything. It's like, okay, it's the same. Which, there's something to be said for being familiar with the world, but then the other part is, I want to find new places. I want to go to. It's a bit more exciting to go. I don't know. It's dangerous. It's that first time when you went into a dungeon and like, what monster is this? And you're like, what the hell am I encountering? I think that's great. The other part is, since James talked about Hyperborea, Hyperborea is compatible with any BX system and most of the D&D, AD&D stuff for first and second edition. So, you know what? If I want old monsters, I can just reskin them, or I can pull stuff from Axe, or I can pull stuff from Lamentations of the Flame Princess, or any other BX derivative. And boom, we're there, guys. I think
Yep.
that's
Goodman Games modules will work just fine.
and that makes it great. And the same thing with Axe. When we're talking about this stuff, they're the Barbarian Conquerors of Canu, which I enjoy reading as well.
Mhm.
Um, okay, guess what? I'll transfer this from over here, and the players don't know any better. They, that first time, if at least for myself, when I opened that Fiend Folio, and I, as a little kid, and I looked at it like, wow, look at these monsters. These are so cool. And then how often do
Mhm.
you see them? That Grell
Mhm.
when it has it out there, and some of the it's like you feel like you're opening a special tome, and you're like, oh, this is going to be so. And most of the players may never even see them. Like they were from one module or another, and they've all been put into the Fiend Folio or Dungeon Master's Guide too. Or even when second edition, when the Monstrous Manual came out, and they found out the new monsters. Or for me, Oriental Adventures was another one. It's a whole brand new world with new, exciting, different culture. I have to relearn things. It was exciting to
And
me.
as soon as you integrated that book into your AD&D game, you had just mixed genres.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially if you used honor system and stuff like that. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, um,
See, you mentioned the Grell Omenal,
yeah,
and it's not the only one, but it's one of the monsters that they introduced that I really loved,
mm-hmm.
because I've used miniatures of Grells in like Star Frontiers,
Yeah,
in Gamma World, in frickin' Traveler, because I mean it's just a weird looking thing with tentacles. So
yeah,
it could be a mutant, it could be an alien. I mean, who even knows what the hell? That thing could be a Cthulhu monster for all you know.
oh,
Mhm.
Like
absolutely,
the
and
spawn of something, It's like,
it's the same picture that some of the better artwork with the original Monster Manual did well, like the White and a few others. That it's it has enough detail, but then there's enough shadow in there that you're like, oh, and then you can see the players, and Yeah, okay, it
Oh,
doesn't
I
have to
love
be.
the Grell. It's got that one adventure
Yeah.
wrapped up, and he's trying to stab it, and it's pulling him towards its big beak.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
It's like, that's no
What the
good.
hell is that? Yeah.
The Grell is basically like a brain with a bunch of tentacles and a
Oh, yeah.
big
yeah,
I
it's
that
just painted
floats
a
around, right?
giant version of that last month. I painted one from Dungeons and Lasers. It's freaking creepy as hell. Shouldn't have a beak.
yeah,
I
it's
went
it's
like on
And
the.
it could exist in any genre of game,
Mhm.
pretty much, just
And
about.
it would terrify or at least creep out anybody who came across it. Off grid,
Mm.
I said this comment a while back. Prove me wrong. It's literally the human existence we currently live in. I think that's actually a part of the dichotomy with loving and hating of genre mixing. I find that the people who despise it the most long for the past the most, and the people who love it the most are more looking forward to the next new thing, the next game. Maybe we've gotten spoiled or homesick. You think either of those are part of the equation?
well, I mean,
Mm.
we were running the Star Wars game. We all were familiar with it. We felt like this was new. There's nothing wrong with familiarity. That's okay. That's sometimes what you want to do. But then there's the other part of, hey, I do want something new. I'm not familiar with this. There's that excitement too when you come, which is what, like, maybe I mentioned with Numenera. Numenera, when it's done right, and I've bought some of their modules and things. It's the world is about exploration and finding new stuff. Same thing with Pugmire. Um,
Hmm.
you know, if you're saying I want to find out what happened to human beings, as a DM, I can put little crumbs everywhere, and you can find and then I could do the little circles like they have in the time machine where they spin them, and they have
Mm-hmm.
like some histories. Well, you can do that with record players and stuff like this, where it's like, hey, we're doing this. Or my favorite is, you can have an old iPad. um, of course, it doesn't really work, but if you could hook it up, maybe you get to see old movies of, I'm just because I'm here with my parents. You see old pictures and you see like in how kids are playing. And you're like, wow, this was a wonderland. This was so great. We wish that we
Or
still
maybe
lived in
they
that
have
world.
one of those books that you're not supposed to have on PDF, on their in their files somewhere. I was thinking about uh, you know a couple of weeks ago about finding alien technology. I think I was thinking about the Predator movies. If someone had gotten a hold of a Predator's outfit and all that gear, and the chart from Gamma World, what would happen if you tried messing around with his arm thing, oops. Why does it
Nuclear
sound like a countdown?
explosion.
Or other technologies that you'd have no idea how to decipher, but you're still going to try, and you're still probably
That
going
would piss
to.
your whole group off when that armband went up in a giant nuclear mushroom cloud.
Well,
It's
well,
like you're all just dead. Sorry. I mean,
well. That's
One
that.
thing I wanted to point out too, Omenal is right. There are only humans in Hyperborea, right?
uh,
However, one thing to remember is when you read the racial descriptions, some of these humans absolutely hate each other.
Yeah.
And then the Hyperborean people themselves, they're like 7 foot tall golden haired dudes that live 300 years. So yeah, you can play a Cimmerian, you can play a Celt, you can play a Roman, a Greek, a Pict, whatever you can think of, you can play all of that.
mhm.
But like one group really hates Atlanteans, and there's another group that really hates Ixians, and so sometimes when you're traveling about, if you're of a race that is really hated in an area, I mean, you have to kind of, you know, disguise yourself or wear a deeply hooded cowl. So yeah, he's right. There's no actual game mechanics between a human and another human, but in game story wise, there's a ton of stuff going on.
Mhm.
Well, that's what it meant is when you're dealing with 5e nowadays, it's so homogenized. You're just supposed to just gloss over it.
Right. Yeah, well, even
And
AD&D didn't have any of what James was just describing. It had racial bonuses
yep.
for generic situations. If you walk by a secret door, roll a d6, 2 and 6, you noticed it. As opposed to any cultural or in-world flavor that could do the same thing, because you're from this area, you get a huge discount or bonus doing this or buying that. It's still a game mechanic, but it's more tied to the world, and a lot of games are come with no setting, therefore they can't put those things in, right?
Mm.
I'm going to bring this
Like
up because we were talking
Hyperboreans are
about it.
really cool. They're
It's
giant blonde guys, right? But every other race hates them
but
and views them as just being cruel, sorcerous bastards. And that's okay because they view every other race as subhuman.
I,
Mhm.
no, I agree with on that. What I'm going to say is, AD&D used to have a big chart on your reaction adjustments. It's
Mhm.
supposed to, and humans were the only ones that were generally neutral for all the races. Everybody
Hmm.
else had preferential and stuff like this.
Well, yeah,
The problem,
elves
the
hated orcs, dwarves hated goblins.
dwarves had theirs. Their half orcs. The Sverneblin. Everyone had this
Mhm.
big old chart of how they're supposed to react to each other. And what I was referring to was in modern D&D in this case. They have
Yeah.
completely thrown that out. And
Because
like I
that's
said,
racism. That's a racism.
You
well,
want to talk
well,
about
this
racism? Apparently, the Eskimo in Hyboria have almost completely exterminated the Yakut. And the Yakut, of course, are Siberian natives
Okay.
that somehow ended up in Hyboria. And the Eskimo are exactly what that sounds like. And they've been on a genocidal war for like 100 and something years. So if you're Yakut, you kind of don't want to be showing up at the Eskimo village and being like, hey, what's up, bros? Because they'll kill you.
but that's actually kind of what I do enjoy. It's cultural as much as anything else, and people are
Hmm.
afraid to deal with that anymore. I was like, look, that
Well, no,
does
they're
make things
afraid of
interesting.
they're afraid of getting called out and canceled by a couple of nobodies at their keyboards playing,
No,
Justice Warrior. We need to put a stop to that, and the only way to do that is by not giving two shits about likes and dislikes. We're allowed to like and dislike things, and we're allowed to voice our opinions, because as soon as we don't, we're not only losing free speech, but we're submitting to compelled thought.
well, no, but I'm not disagreeing with some of that. But my point being is, before 2020 or whatever it was, because I have the stuff. They had
Tough RPG Dad.
orcs, they had orcs and kobolds, and evil and which
Mhm.
side you're picking on. They fifth edition had all that, and it's suddenly when they suddenly panicked about stuff and they rewrote huge sections. Like the drow had always been evil in the game since the very beginning,
Yep.
and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden, like, oh no, we can't do this. We have to do, and I'm just like, you, there's a whole lore built around these people. They're demon worshipping evil elves. That's what they are. And
Right.
and,
To,
and
to the last one of them.
well, there were minor exceptions. Just like Gollum doesn't represent hobbits, but Gollum's a hobbit. It's
He's
just
a
like
mute hobbit, but yeah.
well, but I mean, Drizzt, was the one example. But what gets me about it is it even says, at least the original player's handbook
Well,
I have.
even way
Yeah,
before that, in
yeah,
D3 Vault of the Drow,
yeah.
there was a very small cult of human male drow that worshiped the greater elemental earth god. And they tended to be like chaotic neutral.
Yeah, it
But
was
if they got
something.
caught by the Loth worshippers, they'd instantly be, tortured to death and fed to demons.
No, off grid. I was talking about the big companies. They're worried about that lone guy that starts a movement against their company because they used a racism. Uh, but
Well, I got into an argument about talking about Oriental Adventures, and the guy's like, "Well, da 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 da," and it was like this. I said, "Did you?" And I could tell the guy had never played it, and he'd never really read it. And his argument was, is because honor, because they have an honor system. I said, obviously you never played it because it encouraged you to play a certain way to be heroic, because you got bonuses as your
Mhm.
honor went up. And it's like it's a game mechanic that rewards you for being heroic. Why would you say that's negative? And the other part was, I said, I said everyone I knew, it didn't matter
Me
what race
neither.
they were, thought
Me
that
neither.
OA, they were some of the coolest characters out there. We all want to, and again, part of that was we were tired of the European um, setting for D&D. We wanted to refocus it at the time, just like if they came out with a good, and again, I want to see better. I wish there was more stuff as far as like I liked Mastika, I liked Al Qadim, I
Mhm.
enjoyed, I
I don't
liked
know
all
about
these.
Azteca. I've never opened my box set,
Sure.
but Al Qadim. We were talking. I think it was earlier today. You were talking to Bruce, and I'm like, yeah, I love those settings. Some of the settings were lame, but like Al Qadim, I grew up, watching Sinbad and the Arabian Nights book, and the different movies of Aladdin before Disney got a hold of it. All that stuff was magical and exciting, and the last thing in the world I ever thought was a racist thought about those people, those imaginary people in an imaginary version of Earth, doing imaginary things.
Well,
Well,
I
here's part of
mean,
me. It's
I
wait a
got
minute.
to
It's gonna.
take off, but before
Oh,
I take off, I
yeah.
want to leave you with one thought.
Okay.
You guys are verging into real life tomfoolery,
Oh yeah.
and I mean, come on, man. We're talking about genre bending and
Yeah.
weird elves and shit.
Hmm.
So who really cares what those people think? They're
Yeah.
not going to affect our games.
Well, and here's the
But
reality.
yeah, I gotta take off.
It's
So with that, thank you for having me on, Shadow.
Always a pleasure, James. I hope you
hey
stop by
James, good
more
to see
often
you.
in the new year. Uh,
I'm going to attempt to, sir.
give the wife a hug for
Omenau,
us, and we'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
great to see you again.
Oh yeah. It's just timing. Some of the
See, the
things are
thing
just
is, Omenau knows that in past life he was what's
Xerxes.
his name? Emperor.
The Xerxes
Um,
of the Persian Empire.
no. You were Emperor Darius.
Oh,
And
okay.
in a past life, I was Alexander, and it makes you very uncomfortable, I think.
And you know what's
But
funny
I
is
have to go
I'm
to
of the
bed.
one of Greek descent.
I don't have
Uh,
any past lives. I've just had this really long.
Yes, Alexander was Macedonian, which means Slav.
sure.
He was
Anyway,
not Greek. He was not Greek. He was Macedonian.
no, no.
Anyway,
Yeah,
we
take
Take
can
care,
care,
argue about
James.
James.
that some other time, bro.
No
Well,
problem. No problem. Great having you here, man.
Yeah,
here's
see
what
you
I
later,
find.
Shadow. Thank you so much.
My
What,
pleasure.
well, here's what I find funny. Everyone was talking about whether it's X or whatever else. Guess what? The people who don't want to play in your game aren't going to play in your game, and the people that you don't want playing your
No,
game won't
please,
play in your
please
game.
play my game,
Well,
please.
I mean, that's the reality, and that's
I
why
know,
I never
right?
worry about them. Is it's not like my son where he's younger, but he doesn't care, and his generation doesn't care that much either. And neither does yours because your son's the same, like 1 year older than mine. But when we're talking about some of these things, guess what? Do you think that I wanted to play a blonde Nordic character when I was playing in Oriental Adventures? No, I was thinking of Japanese or Chinese or Hong Kong. I'll play that guy. And when I was playing Mastika, by God, I was expecting to play Mayans. I was not expecting to play some blonde haired, Swedish guy. It doesn't make sense. And it's like, I will play whatever I feel like playing that feels appropriate. And I don't care because it's a fantasy game. And that's also what
And
role
I don't
playing
think
is.
there's a one of us that ever maliciously played a character that didn't look like us or wasn't us or whatever, like maliciously played like a black guy to be, the butt of all the jokes
Yeah.
and to be racist about it. I know I've never run into anything like that ever. Maybe a little, play up a little bit of the humor, amongst friends kind of thing, but never any malicious thing like that. There's only so many like Robin Hood characters I can play before I
Uh,
want to play freaking, Little John or Merlin or freaking Buck Rogers or something. It's, we,
well,
we,
part
we've
part of me
been spoiled.
feels.
Damn it.
I mean, I hate saying this for political correctness, but no one has done a good. And I'm not saying that there isn't one. It's just not ever broken out. A good African um, based RPG or Indian for my, and I know there's like one or two, but no one's really really gone into it. And I like, man, there is so much cool stuff from some of those cultures. I would love to do stuff like that. It's like, but I'm not trying to do it to say, oh, I'm going to do it so I can make fun of them. I'm like, no, if you make it cool, I'll play it. Which is
Mhm.
the problem that I have with it. That's what I loved about Oriental Adventures. It made playing an Asian character really cool. They gave them cool abilities.
Well,
Same thing I thought with Mestika.
it gave us all the tools we needed to play
Yeah,
something that if we tried to do it, as young teenagers, if we tried to do it on our own, we probably would have made some, really big mistakes. We probably still would have had
sure.
fun, but we
Yeah,
got to play it uh, uh, with knowledge and appreciation given to us by other people with even more knowledge and more appreciation because they were older than us and they'd done the homework. We probably, couldn't have found all the books that they used to write the Oriental Adventures and to come up with something that was one of the best books, you know, not including the original
yeah.
trilogy of the AD&D books. It was one of the best books they ever put out because it had, I mean, you could literally just play with that book and the DMG, and play
It
for
was
years.
it was that. Well, you still had supposed to have the player's handbook, but yeah, it was that one. You had, but there were others out there. It's like, no, if you make it cool, people will play it. They will think it's cool. The same thing I felt like. I don't know if you've read through the Mastika stuff, but when the Mastika,
My box is still sealed in plastic, dude.
just because you do that doesn't mean you haven't looked at the PDFs. Anyway, I'm just
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
is or you had a friend that had it, but no, the Mastika stuff, you could play like Aztec or Jaguar
Mhm.
characters that could turn into Jaguars. I'm like, look, I was like, this is cool. It doesn't have to be everything has to be exactly. It's like kind of the feeling of, like a lot of people don't like gunpowder in their D&D games, but
Mhm.
yet you have something like Warhammer Fantasy, which is Renaissance versus Middle Ages, and you're like, but people don't seem to have any problems with that. Again, I think it's where they feel it. But what if
Here's a question because you
sure,
touched on something I've been thinking about this subject for a while. In like, say you take your most vanilla D&D world, right?
yeah,
And everything goes from the books, like literally raw. Rules is written, everything is there, but everything's going to be run as is. How long do you think that world could hold back the Renaissance and stay in the Middle Ages because of human ingenuity or technological advances? How long do you think you could stave that off before it would just come barreling down the road like it should?
you know what though is, I guess part of me looks at it as like it's not that important because we're playing fantasy. I'm not disagreeing with the rise of technology, but then
Mhm.
you're almost getting into the same of, hey, let's do a game of Shadowrun, um, which is high technology, which is magic. So you do have your sword wielding cyber samurai with heavy armor, with their RPGs. And I'm not even against it. I actually don't mind the system in certain cases as far as that. What bothered me more about it was, and this is a critique more of Shadowrun, is you had deckers in one group, so they weren't with the main group. They had to have their own DM running them while they were
Welcome to
playing.
the show, Doc.
Hey,
Hey
hey,
guys.
Doc. And then you had to have then you had to have your mage who was in the astral realm, so you had to play another one, which by the way, that was only the mages, so then they had their own separate DM, and it was a mess as trying to get everything together, which should be a really cool world. It just never played out that well in while you were gaming. um, but I don't mind some genre build. What is? Did you guys never? I never played it. My friend did. I didn't quite. It didn't gel with me, and maybe that was unfair at the time. Did you ever look at Torg?
I
Heard of it, never
remember it.
played it.
I remember seeing it. It was like there was a big ad campaign in Dragon Magazine for it.
Yeah,
And again, welcome to the show, Doc. But I never got to play it or
it
even read it.
it was exactly what we're talking about, where you had like kind of different worlds or things that you would go back and forth between, and some of them would be fancy and some of them would be sci-fi, and you went back and forth between all of these. Um,
No, we're not talking 1-to-1 time.
but
upgrade because then it would take that long.
Although going back to the gunpowder thing, I've the main like custom world I made has had gunpowder in it, and the way I control it is that you can't chemically make it. It's processed from an ore that's found, which is incredibly rare. So the expense and rarity of it basically make it useless as a military weapon. So it's like palace guards will have it, nobles will have a musket to hunt with just as a status symbol thing. So it's there, but it's not really a viable military weapon. So the technology for it just doesn't advance.
Fucking upgrade, that was
yeah,
awesome.
there's just not enough
I
of it
did
to make.
something
Yeah.
not quite that limiting, but what I did was I made it an invention of the dwarves, and the dwarves lived far away, and they were keeping it to themselves unless you were going to pay an exorbitant amount of money, and that kept it from going mainstream for hundreds and hundreds of years. But because I had ran my campaign world for over a decade with multiple generations, things progressed. People made new inventions, better hinges, better, you know, construction techniques and little things. And eventually, you're not in the Middle Ages anymore.
Yeah. But also,
Unless-
technology can advance in very arbitrary ways. Keep in mind the steam engine was invented in like 300 BC.
yep. Yeah.
I mean,
Was the
if they had
Aeolipile?
really put it, the Greeks did it. If
Yeah.
somebody had really thought about it, they could have figured out, we can run machines on this,
Yep.
and you could have had the Industrial Revolution, you know, in the early, Iron
They
Age.
just made the brass bull and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to mention
There were a
the other
couple
part.
things, like there was a temple that used it to open and close the doors in a seemingly magical way, but it was never. And also, you had like cultures like Rome. Rome actually outlawed a lot of labor-saving inventions because they were worried about how it would affect their economy.
Well, there's
Sure.
the other part too, which is
Magic.
it's people also forget that some technologies come out, but you need supporting technologies to make them worth it. It's just like I was joking about the iPhone or the iPad. If there are no cell phone towers, it loses much of its functionality, other than if you're going to take pictures and things. Or let's face it, you can get things, but if there's no power grid, there are things that come into it that start making, even if you have a technology to do part A, and this happened for a lot of inventions, is they had to wait for the supporting infrastructure to catch up before they could move forward with technology. Now, again, I'm not saying that people don't do it, but in the magic world, is there as much incentive if it takes, if it takes 40,000 people to build something, and it takes like a couple of wizards to do the same thing with wands, maybe they'll just say, hey, it's just easier for us to keep the wands. So it kind of discourages the invention because they can't make enough money off of it.
Yeah, depending on how prevalent magic is, that can absolutely stifle technological development if there's an
Right.
easier
But
way to do something already.
see, that was part of the problem back in the day for us, is that our DM would magic was fine for the NPCs, player characters, no way. So we would just go, okay, well we can't do it magically. Let's try and do it technologically. And then the GM's like, well, I don't want you doing that either. I better just cut loose with the magic. Well, make up your damn mind. Are you just gonna be a dick about everything we try to do, or are you gonna be like not care and let us succeed or fail on our own merit and see what happens, which taught that GM a bunch of valuable lessons, because the GM shouldn't give two shits.
Well, I'm going to bring
Do
this
what
up
you
too,
want.
which
I
is
don't care. The
when was
world's still gonna
gunpowder?
keep on turning
When was gunpowder invented?
by the Japanese.
The Chinese, quite a
Or-
long time. It wasn't really, they didn't do a lot with it for a
Yeah,
very
they thought it
long
was
time.
barbaric.
Well, I think a lot of times what they did in certain cases, by my understanding, is they used it for rockets, and they used it for, which were highly inaccurate. They were
And
highly
fireworks.
inaccurate, and then a lot of for fireworks. So they were like, it's a toy, which is sometimes what they said for the Greeks. But
Mhm.
the other part is you still have to have the metallurgy. Like
Mhm.
people talk about building
Yeah, you
cannons.
can't pull the Captain Kirk against the Gorn. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, actually, here's the weird part: is I have seen them where they're able to create cannons, and apparently historically they did out of logs, but the logs would only last like a few shots. Like okay,
Yeah.
but then the other part that comes into it is for cannons, when we're talking about this for metallurgy, your metallurgy has to catch up to your gunpowder, otherwise it doesn't do you any good. It was so this is why I said you have to have the everything else in there. So yeah, it's not that I just think that sometimes we do set. I do like what Alexander McCrease did with his. He set his world at like 400 AD. So you did have some of the armors, but some of the armors just didn't come about. Like his view is, you don't need plate mail in most cases. Plate mail is nice, but it's super expensive. And the Romans did have a version of plate mail. But for your average army soldier, why would he spend all this money for it when really you're slowing yourself down, or it's heavy?
And you've got absolute rule, and you can Shanghai just about anybody into press them into service when you're the king.
Well,
why make plate armor? Just make more babies.
Well, that's true. Well, here's the thing: how one knight versus 10 peasants, and you're saying, well, how much does the knight cost? Well, the knight might suddenly, well, if it's going to cost me the equivalent of a few $1 million, you're like, no, we'll just take the 10 peasants. It's a lot cheaper and more cost effective, and so that's why I said there has to be an economic in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that players won't do it or people won't, because people do weird things that are, what is the, it's not the Rubik's Cube, it's the gold rube or whatever, the one where he always does the, like on how to butter your toast, and it has to go through like 20 processes for anyone.
Oh, it's like Rube Goldberg or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's the Rube Goldberg. It's, well, you move this.
Build a better mousetrap kind of thing.
Yeah. Of course, it was never a better mousetrap. It was just a more complex one that looked cool. But people do that. But from an economic standpoint, it's just not going to be viable. So yeah, your player characters might get it as a symbol, a status symbol, but it's never going to catch on in the greater world for that very reason.
There's actually a conference. There's a competition. I forget where it's held. Somewhere in the Midwest. It's a Rube Goldberg competition where people make these machines, these insanely complicated machines, and they get scored on like how many steps are involved.
Kind of like the dominoes competitions. Where they make a big design and then you push the one domino and it does all the weird crap. We're
But they're like flipping through the air and shit.
Well, the more unique, and I'm not saying that they don't do this. It's just, as human beings. But if you're going to say, is this economically viable? Not usually. I mean, YouTube might make it economically viable now, but having the number of views. But it's still something you have to be passionate about and you want to love. But it's how many guild masters are going to do? It's the same thing of
we got a nerdy ogre attack.
Well, he heard Palladium, and we all got
no.
Nerdy Goblin.
Welcome to the show, Nerdy.
Hi-de-ho, everybody.
Damn, that's a huge goblin.
Yeah, but no, but like what type of genres are we talking about? Like we've gone through horror, we've gone through, of course, different time periods all mixed into
like
one.
I like Off-Grid's idea. It would be interesting to play on a world in the throes of a world cataclysm instead of after said cataclysm.
It like everything else is you probably don't know until it's too late, and I don't know on like what is considered the world cataclysm. If you suddenly go, well, a perfect example is, speaking of which, is Twilight 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know Palladium. I'm going to bring Nerdy into this. Palladium did that with, what was it? Chaos Earth?
Chaos Earth.
Where you literally see the beginning of the Rift world before the Rift world because of the shit going on that causes the world to go kaput.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as everybody knows, Palladium sucks, so it's no big deal.
Hey, I'm still waiting on my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to come in next month.
I've
Coming
heard
from the
that
man
they
who's got
make chicken.
60, coming from the man who's got 60 Palladium books right down here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a kind of an idea for something like that because I've been watching a lot of the Graham Hancock stuff.
Yes.
You guys know him,
Mhm.
and
Yep, yep, of
doing
course.
like like a very advanced civilization during the Ice Age, where they're basically out around the equatorial belt, and you start. There's this huge civilization, do kind of a fantasy game, run it for a while, and then the young Adrias hits. The asteroid comes and it starts setting off the super volcanoes, and just have the campaign go on while as the world's just like completely falling apart.
I,
Trying to.
That can be very interesting.
so,
Well,
little side note there. If
yeah,
there's
yeah.
anyone's
Excuse me,
looking,
guys. Yes,
yeah.
Dying Earth is one of the not just the heavy hitters. I don't know that I call it heavy hitters because Goodman Games is the only people who've actually ever tried to put it in game form, but it is one of the
No,
oldest.
no, there is another one that did it. I forgot who it was. It Pellegrin Press.
Okay, never
Um,
heard of it, but okay.
yeah, well, that's the problem is you've never heard of it, but it's not that it wasn't. No, I found the RPG um, on the web, but it was, you know. But no, I
High
looked at
seas,
it.
you mean?
Well, I don't know. It's like the same thing. Is it technically still under copyright if if they're no longer authorized to produce it? Like, look at Star Wars. They just posted it up there because they can't sue you for copyright for loss of money because they're not allowed to print it anymore. So is it pirated or not? I don't know. That's why I think that Weston Games did that was you we can't print it anymore, but we can't sue if you copy it. To be fair, because you can't say that you lost revenue
Well,
unless
copyright law is weird. You can
yeah,
hold on to it for a while, but if you don't use it, it's like, and well, it depends if it's an IP or if
right.
rented
Mhm.
IP or it's an original. Like if
well,
it's a acquired IP, you have to. I think you have to put something out every couple years
Mhm.
Well,
for it
that
to
that's
that
know.
what with
that's a
uh,
licensing
with
thing.
Disney. You'll notice that for a while Disney had used the Steamboat Willie at the start of their movies.
Mhm.
It showed Mickey on the boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's because that after 100 years, it becomes public domain
Eh,
unless you use it and you can revamp it for like another so many years. And then
So
that's what
so
they did is that, they started using it saying, hey, look, we're using it. We still own the copyrights. It's not
no
public
no no no
domain
no no
yet.
no no. It's no longer copyrighted, but it can be trademarked. That's why they did.
Trademark. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, no, no. I mean, this is where the law gets really weird on things
Mhm.
because
can't
you
stay off my
can't.
keyboard.
Trademark gets into it, which is, hey, this is an iconic thing for us. So even though the copyright has failed, it's a trademark of us. But
Mhm.
this is where I said for Star Wars, for Western Games, if they were to sue, you have to sue that to show that you're going to lose damages. You can't have damages if you're not allowed to print it anymore. So that at that point you can't say that you can't do a one-to-one that, hey, whatever you're doing. Um, and I think that's part of it. But I think that's why I said it's the Pellegrin Games, which is what he was talking about there of Dying
Mhm.
Earth.
Yeah, Paul.
Um,
and it can also get segmented very heavily. Like I've been looking because I want to do a Hyborian source book for my game. The Conan stuff is technically public domain,
Yeah.
yeah.
but there's a lot of little pieces of it that people do have rights to. So it's
Mhm.
it's insanely complicated. In fact, when they made the original Schwarzenegger movie, it was delayed by like 7 years, and they had to form a corporation that sole purpose was to sort out the ownerships of various things to even get
Yeah,
permission
because didn't August
to shoot.
Derla end up owning a bunch of it as well as
Yeah.
Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp, in addition to uh, Robert E. Howard's
Yeah, and then there was all
relative.
So
the licensing that they had done for like
Mhm.
Marvel and everything. So like it was like 50 different people owned some aspect of it,
Mhm.
and
so
it's still like that to an extent.
the other problem is that several of the stories Howard wrote were printed after his death,
Yep.
and so they don't fall under the same copyright as the ones that were printed in the Weird Tales when
Yeah.
he was alive.
Starting with the Gnome Press books that I reviewed, going into there was another company that got them. I forget who, but it's a much the it's like a there's more books in the series, but they're really thin. They're like, but they're hardback.
Yeah.
But it's like some stories will be like one book, like a 30-page book. A story was turned into a book, but I forget the name of the company. But yeah, uh,
Like I think a lot of Breck Morn was printed after his death, so
mhm.
that's under copyright. But the ones
and
that were
and a
printed
lot
for
of
the Weird
cult
Tales
too.
are not. Um, it's a weird thing in there, and so you're going like well, remember we were talking about the Frost Giant's Daughter and
Yeah,
Gods of the North. Gods of the North was printed when he was alive, even though it's a the rewritten version was
Frostbite
the
starter.
well, I think that what happened was is that they didn't want to do it, and he was under contract with Weird Tales not to use Conan, so he used an alias and
Hmm.
changed it a little bit. Even, but yeah, the Frost Giant's Daughter was not printed until after. So technically, if you're using that one versus the Gods of the North one, it's weird. Like he says, it's all different pieces, and people who get the Conan get everything that's under R.E.H. Howard's Conan, not the Sprague or the Marvel or that's
Hmm.
it's a mess. And you having read it, you can start telling there are differences in how they're written. It's
Oh,
just like
absolutely.
Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Next year I'll be doing the Daw book series that we're all familiar with growing up. The paperback series, and see how different they are to what was in the Gnome Press books for Sumerian September. Because I know, having read the King Kull stuff that Lynn Carter did, I know the Lynn Carter Elsprague de Camp collaborations with Howard's work is going to be very different, and in a lot of ways, it might even be better. But
I,
we'll have to wait and see.
so right now I have the Monolith one. I have all of the 2D20, which I enjoyed, but at a certain point, and this is true of everything. Um, at one point they started doing Conan Exile, so they started trying to branch out a bit beyond the original R.E.H. Howard
Because
stuff
what
for the
Robert E. Howard
original.
wrote is not really a lot. It really isn't.
It's he wrote a fair amount to be fair for what was there, but it's not enough to you as a DM. You're the one that's going to have to flesh out different. But I like
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they give me. That's why I like toolkits. They gave me toolkits to create my own monsters very easily within the Conan game.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of genre bending, this is where you get the outer creatures and the invasion from different planets or different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Red Nails where he brings out a wand, which he describes not as magic but as a higher technology. The same thing with Thrak. When Thrak was in there
Yeah.
and he had the crystals, or like how he could look in different rooms and
All
things.
the periscopes and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's not that they didn't have it. I think it's a more modern era. Back then, they just viewed that as pulp fiction. It was written on cheap pulp paper that was meant to be read and thrown away.
Right, and
And
and, and and there were no rules. There were no genres. I mean, there were, but they were creating a brand new one, so literally anything could go. That was the point. Is to be, more creative than following, certain rules or genre expectations. It was about creating new, exciting things, because these kind of people like ourselves. I mean, like each one of you. How many books do you think you've read in your lifetime up to this point?
hundreds, if not thousands,
Yeah.
probably thousands would be my guess.
Maybe even tens of thousands for some of us, if we
Yeah.
include periodicals and things like that. You know,
Short stories.
And
there's
it,
going to
it's
come a point for people who are, better read. I'm just going to say that instead of
yeah.
that eventually we're going to get to a point where we need and crave something brand new. Yes, this is where all the cool kids are. Speaking of, I'm glad you showed up because you saved me from having to send you an email. I sent you a package today. However, I'm not sure, but you might have to pay $10 in tariffs or what have you when it arrives. Sorry, I couldn't slip a $10 bill in there, and I don't think they would take it. I can't pay that ahead of time. So, but because I wrote it as a gift, uh, Father Aaron, uh, you may not have to pay that. But if worst comes to worst, you could just you know, bat those eyelashes and give them a smile, and maybe kind of show off the collar, and maybe they'll just go, "It's cool, Father. You're good." I
It's a
don't know.
bunch of Bibles. Trust me. No, no. I'm gonna.
It was my
We're talking
pleasure.
about.
I've been
I'm
sitting on
gonna.
it for a while, Father Aaron, and I finally was able to get a free weekend to go to the post office. My post office on the weekend is the only time I can go to the post office, but it closes at 2:30.
So I'm gonna ask you guys a question, a little bit different, which is, can you name two genres that seem incompatible?
I was trying earlier, man. It's rough. It's rough. Um, they've got to be like fictional kind of genres, not like
It's whatever you want, man. I don't care.
not
I don't
like
care if they're
courthouse
from.
drama.
Horror and comedy. Horror and comedy do not
Have you
belong
not
together.
watched Bubba Hotep?
Huh?
Did you watch Bubba Hotep? Or Dracula? What was it? Once Bitten, or some of these others. Or
Dead
anyone
and
that
loving
watched
it.
Tales of the Crypt. Remember Tales of the Crypt and how they used to have the humor
Yeah,
in there?
Elvira. Come on, man.
Look, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can't have
Yes.
humor and horror, but it just to do a
It would be hard to do.
Yes, a horror comedy where the horror is terrifying and the comedy is as dark as you can get, I guess.
Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, there we go. The Dungeon Minister has one.
yes.
Shaun of the
Yeah.
Dead.
Well,
You know
there's a
what? Though,
Rocky
I
Horror
think
Picture
sometimes.
Show because that was terrifying
Yeah.
and funny.
Yeah,
terrifying.
I think.
Young
Wrong on both
Frankenstein.
accounts. That
Oh, yeah.
that movie is way overrated.
Which movie?
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, it's overrated, but it's a great place, or was a great place to pick up girls. Now, not so sure.
It's anyway. There's so many
Take
things
that as
that
you. Well, anyways,
What are some other ones out there? Because actually, having watching anime, I'm like, yeah, they
cozy horror.
But see, I don't see Young Frankenstein as a horror comedy. I see it as
No,
a
it was
comedy.
purely a comedy,
Yeah, is pure comedy.
and one of the best.
Well, so it's Bubba Hotep, but Bubba Hotep is,
I haven't seen
Have
that
you
one.
guys- So Bubba Hotep is Elvis Presley and Black JFK fighting a mummy in an East Texas nursing home.
I got to see this movie now.
Oh, you've never
I'm not
seen
saying
that?
it's the greatest
Oh, it's pretty
movie,
hysterical.
But I will say that Bruce Campbell as Elvis
Emo
does
Western?
a fantastic job.
Okay, that's a good one.
Okay, that's me hard. Emo Western. Wait a minute, I thought that all Westerns were kind of emo except for the pink hair.
Yeah, I honestly, I was thinking long and hard about that very question all day as I was doing my things. I'm sure somebody could work it, take any two genres and come up with something enjoyable. Maybe
I-
even only on a short,
Yeah.
time frame, but at least enough for a one shot or a movie.
I'm going to bring up one other thing though. Is I've been watching Alien, and one of the ones I was planning on running with you guys, and I was watching guys. I was watching groups play the Alien RPG, and I have never heard groups laugh so much at the things going on. Even though it was a horror game, and some of it was to break tension,
Right.
and even when it was backstabbing, people were laughing their head off because they knew this is what to expect. And, it wasn't, even though there was horrific, even though the characters were going to die or go panic or everything else, they had so much fun with it because of that. And when one person decides to backstab the other, which was part of their it was a husband and wife, oddly enough, and one of them was this. And so, of course, the husband's chasing the wife's character down to kill him because their job is to, kill off the rest of the party. And you're just like, oh my God, and they're all laughing about it. because I think they all knew what they would expect. That's why I said it's that set of expectations that matters for a genre more than anything else. Um, I mean, just like we're talking about comedy in Deadlands, I could imagine that where you get something between Blazing Saddles and Shaun of the Dead.
Or I was thinking the Bruce Campbell movies, Army of the Dead, and
Yeah, the Evil
Yeah,
Dead movies.
yeah,
yeah,
but just make it a western with zombies and Bruce Campbell.
yeah,
I'd pay money to
exactly.
see that.
Yeah, speaking of westerns, I've always wanted. I generally don't like remakes, but the original big script for Big Trouble in Little China was a western,
Yeah,
and they changed it. I would love to see the western version of
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it would have to be a Jackie Chan film.
that.
Hmm.
As Egg Shed or something. He's a little older now, but
Well. Too bad he's old, but too bad there isn't a replacement for Jackie Chan. But if there was someone that was like him, I could see Jackie Chan doing that. As Big Trouble in Little China, except now we're in China, on the railroads and stuff like this. Absolutely. Anyway, guys, I'm going to head off. I'm going to try and make sure my son can do his last little bits of
Yeah,
lessons.
we were. I'm gonna stick around for another 5 minutes, and then I'm
Okay,
gonna call
well,
it.
then I'll stay until then.
It's a church night or tomorrow's church, so.
So,
but,
Doc, I'm going to say this much. What is the craziest Gonzo game that you've run?
it only lasted one session. We actually tried to do a Zardoz game once.
Oh, yes,
That was pretty wacky.
that's
And Nerdy, what was yours for the most ridiculous Gonzo game you've ever done?
I don't have one. I don't have a lot of.
He plays Palladium, so it's all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I've played other games, but I don't have a lot of games behind my belt as a game master.
Okay,
So I haven't.
but just even as a player.
Gonzo. Well, it lasted like only one session.
That's okay.
And, but I'd have to say I was in one where the game master had this bright idea of having like somehow our personalities got put into our characters.
Okay.
And so I guess that was. I guess that would be it. Can't really think of anything, like really gonzo off the wall. I know it's kind of mundane, but it is what it is.
You've played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that counts. I'm sure, along with some rare stuff. I mean, especially if you play what is it, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Transdimensional stuff.
No, that was the first Palladium book I ever owned. Yeah, I think I still have it. I really like that book, and it's what I got it. I don't know how, and that's what made me say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to check out this Palladium stuff." But as for your question, I played in a game called The Sword of Shanana.
Lord
And
Bowser.
I remember almost nothing about it because it was 45 years ago when I was a wee teen. But I also ran the Phantasmagorical Monty Hall Dungeon, which is an actual printed module from the early 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, that is quite ludicrous. And I think that if I ran a game at a convention, it would be that one because I'm certain like nobody remembers it, nobody's ever heard of it, and it's just
I was
funhouse ridiculousness. And
I was-
Offgrid
I was-
says, hold on, Offgrid says most Gonzo game college game of D&D was shrooms and brownies. It went Gonzo quick. Okay, I wish I would have read that before I read that.
I'm going to bring this up,
Gives
which
you a help.
is one thing I don't think I could do is I'm not sure how well I could do a musical with some of the other genres. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it
you
can't be
force me to
done.
sing at the table. I'm gonna punch you right in the belly.
What?
Don't make me sing.
Oh,
I have no
but no,
singing voice. It's
I
trashed.
was thinking,
I
I
just
don't
prefer
think
to
that I'd ever
punch
want to
you.
be part of a musical, and I'm not sure it's.
Yeah, musical horror would be an interesting combination.
Yeah,
Little shop of horrors. What are you talking about?
Okay.
yeah, that's actually
And Jackie's actually auditioning for that play next month. That's why it came so easily to memory. He's hoping for the role of the dentist.
yes, I
Uh,
can see him doing that. Um,
yeah, yeah. I offered to help him with his lines because I practically, depending on which version, if it's the Rick Moranis, I practically know it inside and out. So
yes, has he seen the movie?
no, he has not.
Oh, well, I think there are a couple of ones out there, but yeah,
I ordered the Rick Moranis. It'll be here any day, and I'm going to force him to sit down and watch it. Actually, he says he watched it somewhere, but it's like, yeah, but you didn't watch it with me, damn it. Or if you did, it was a long time ago, and I ordered it just for him. But I'm going to say goodnight here, folks. I know Owen's got to get running, and so do I. I want to thank DM James for showing up earlier. Doc, Nerdy, you guys are always welcome. Paul, if you're still out there, hit me up through DM James on Discord so you can get onto my Discord, and you also will be welcome here anytime. Obviously, off grid and some of the other regulars, uh, they know how to get here if they want to join. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to address this topic. uh, I think I do it every year, don't I, Omen?
I don't know. That I guess the real point is if you're playing games and you're going to have fun, mix whatever you want and screw what other people think. If they want to play it with you, go for it.
Yep, I couldn't have said better myself. Anything else you guys would like to add before we toddle the F off and go do our things?
Silver Plate's the name of the one I was thinking of with where you can play a food. Okay,
Yeah, I
sorry, I'm just
remembered it
done.
too, but I didn't want to bring it up because it's so damn cute.
They did a good job, actually. So the banana split dragon, it's the artwork's fun.
No last words, guys? Okay. Dungeon Minister, Cal, Paul, Off Grid. Who else was here tonight? Dale.
Coco B.
Coco B was here. Nerdy Ogre was here. Now, fuck that guy.
No,
Excuse my French.
What an asshole, you
I know,
know?
right? RPG
I
Dad
know
was
he
here.
brings up the class of the place way
Exnard.
too high.
Want to make sure I didn't miss anybody going all the way back.
Eldred, Wolfsbane, whoever that is. I don't
Eldrad.
know.
Oh, yeah, you know Eldrad. He's a friend of Bubba's. He's been here before.
Okay.
He's the one who say, what is this, the Dick Van Dyke Show? Cody was here for like a minute. Everybody else who were watching in the shadows, I appreciate it. Those of you who come in later, I appreciate it even more because the show's over. The fact that people come watch these things when they're no longer live blows me away. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And until we meet again, happy trails.
Take care.
Literal.
So long.
Say goodnight, Gracie.